What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are breaking down week 19 of fantasy hockey. We have the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to help you maximize your games, and also some new must-add players. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. To start things off, we got the new must-add players / some new developments with these players. I included most of these players on my list in last week's video, so if you added Arturi Lehkonen, you got that 4-point night. Some of these other guys, Juraj Slafkovskys, continue to produce. But I wanted to include them once again because they are still must-add players. And let me just quickly talk about some of these guys. We have Arturi Lehkonen, like I said. He moved up to the first line, I think, for a game or two. He's not on the first line anymore, but he's still on the first line power play. And I think he's going to be really solid for the rest of the year. So definitely pick him up. Slafkovsky, first line power play. His deployment is pretty much cemented. He's been fantastic as of late. This is a no-brainer. We also have Viktor Arvidsson. He was on my list last week in my last week guide video. But at that time, he hadn't played yet. He was just returning literally last week. But since he returned, we got 2 games out of him and we got some promising stuff. In both games, he took a lot of shots. He took a lot of shot attempts. He got good ice time. And he was immediately on the first line power play. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of Arvidsson. We know in fantasy, he's a guy that takes a lot of shots. So in a points league like Yahoo Default, really valuable. He's good in the Cat League, and he's going to be good if your league values power play points as well. So make sure you pick that guy up. This guy's been fantastic since returning from his suspension. And what I'm really liking about Pinto is just his ice time. He's getting like 18, 19 minutes per game, and he's putting up really good peripherals as well. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of Shane Pinto, and he's also on the first line power play. So please take a look at him on your wire. Next, we got a new player that wasn't in last week's video, and that guy is Anthony Cirelli of the Tampa Bay Lightning. If you're looking at Anthony Cirelli in the past 2 weeks, this guy's been on fire. And it's not just because he was moved up to the first line power play recently. He's just playing really good even strength, which we love to see. Nothing's really changed in terms of his even strength deployment, but he is on the first line power play now. And that is obviously great for fantasy. Tampa Bay Lightning have one of the best power plays in the league with Stammer, Kucherov, etc. And I don't know how long this deployment on the power play is going to last. Really, it's only been 2 games since Cirelli's been on this first line power play. They bumped Nicholas Paul down to the second unit. So we'll just have to see what happens. But if he manages to stay on this first line power play, really good for fantasy, obviously. So please take a look at him. Next, we got some more players that were in last week's video. Kyle Palmieri, super underrated, like I told you guys. Barrett Hayden, he hasn't had a great week so far. Pretty much all the Coyotes players this week have not been very good. They were the players to stream because they had 4 games and 4 off nights, but yeah, they've just been really struggling. Either way, Barrett Hayden is back on the first line and the first line power play as of today, as I'm recording this on Saturday. So I'm really liking that for Hayden. He was great in last year's second half of the season, and I really do think that Schmaltz, Keller, and Hayden line will heat up very soon. So please take a look at him. Next, we got Alex Newhook. He's on the first line power play with Monahan on the Jets now, so that's always a good option. We got Jamie Drysdale on the first line power play, playing better as of late, which I like to see. We got Alex Killorn. He is healthy now. He's back. He could be a good guy in a deeper league. We got Brant Clark. Only like him in a deep league, guys. He doesn't get the best ice time. Maybe it will improve as we move into the end of the season. But I don't know, right? Who knows what's going to happen with him? I am recording this an hour after he just scored that OT winner against the Bruins. Beautiful goal, but don't get your hopes up too much about Clark. I think next year is a year to look at him, but if you're in a deeper league and need a defenseman, he could be an okay option. Lastly, we got Corey Perry of the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know what the Oilers are going to do with their lines long-term. I don't know how good Perry is going to be long-term, but today he's playing on the first line with McDavid and Draisaitl. So, you know, if he manages to play with one of these guys consistently, that's good for his fantasy value. And right now, as I'm recording this, he has a goal and 1 assist. So yeah, we'll have to see how long this lasts, but this is good news for Perry owners, and he could be good in a deeper league. I also wanted to mention, guys, as always, follow me on X/Twitter. I post a lot of up-to-date information on there. So yeah, give me a follow at FIREDUP Fantasy. And also, Drafters Fantasy Sports, if you guys want to do the pick'ems on the NHL, they have props every game. And they also have pick'ems on the NBA. They have pick'ems in the UFC, which is awesome. That's a new thing. And yeah, you guys can sign up using promo code FIREDUP and get 100% match deposit up to $100. The best promo out there. It's the best promo on the website, and it's for first-time signups. So head on over to Drafters Fantasy Sports and use promo code FIREDUP. Moving on to the schedule, we have the teams with the most game/off nights, and we have a lot of teams that play 4 times this week and also have a decent amount of off nights. So lots of options to stream. And in terms of the list here, the number 1 team is definitely the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are the only team that has 4 games and 4 off nights this week. You know, it does depend on your schedule. Like I say, always in my videos, you have to check to see which nights you have open roster spots on, but generally they are going to play on off nights this week. So I'll get into some of the streamers a little bit later. We also have teams that have 4 games and 3 off nights. We have a little tier break here. We have the Sabres, the Jets, and the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, the Blackhawks, obviously there's not a lot of options, and they have a pretty bad opponent goals against average this week, but you never know. And then obviously there's some good players on the Sabres and Jets that you want to take a look at for sure. Then we got a tier break, 4 games and 2 off nights. We have the Rangers, the Ducks, the Predators, the Devils, the Oilers, and the Minnesota Wild. Some of these teams have a better opponent goals against average than others, like the Rangers versus the Minnesota Wild. The Wild have a pretty bad opponent goals against average, but in general, the players on these teams are going to help you maximize your games, so you should take a look at them. Lastly, we also have some teams on the bottom here that have 4 games and 1 off night, and these teams are the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Detroit Red Wings, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Dallas Stars, the Vancouver Canucks, and the Boston Bruins. Moving on, we have the teams with the least amount of games this week, and we have good news. There's only one team that plays twice, and that team is the San Jose Sharks. Every other team has at least 3 games, so if you do happen to have some players on the Sharks, you could probably drop them, and it's not going to cost you. Moving on, we have the teams with the easiest opponent record this week. We have 5 teams on this list: the Los Angeles Kings, the Winnipeg Jets, the Buffalo Sabres, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Nashville Predators. The players on these teams should do pretty well this week, and their goalies as well. And one underrated option that could be available from this list is Buffalo Sabres goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I should also mention David Rittich could be a good option for this week. We'll see how they run their goalies. They've been really running him quite a bit and not giving Talbot starts. So yeah, make sure you keep an eye on that. Then on the flip side, we have the teams with the hardest opponent record this week. We have the Calgary Flames, the Ottawa Senators, the Arizona Coyotes, the Colorado Avalanche, the Minnesota Wild, and the Boston Bruins. Then we have the teams with the highest opponent goals against average, and what this means is that the teams on this list are playing teams that generally let in a lot of goals. So the players from these teams should do pretty good this week. We have the Vegas Golden Knights, the Los Angeles Kings, the Buffalo Sabres, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the Winnipeg Jets. Then on the flip side, we have the teams with the lowest opponent goals against average. The players on these teams could underperform this week, so keep this in mind. We have the Calgary Flames, the Minnesota Wild, the Arizona Coyotes, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the Ottawa Senators. All right, now is the part of the video where I give you guys the streamers to help you maximize your games for this week. And as I told you earlier, the Columbus Blue Jackets have the best schedule in terms of maximizing your games of 4 games and 4 off nights this week. And these are some good options. We have Boone Jenner, amazing peripheral wise, underrated. He can score goals. He can do it all. Zach Rowinski gets a lot of ice time, puts up points. He's actually been really great this year, not in the goal department, but in terms of putting up points. So yeah, he's a really good option. Johnny Gaudreau, he's been playing better as of late. Igor Chinakhov, he's healthy now. He was injured for a couple of games. He's been pretty good this year. Kirill Marchenko, he's been pretty disappointing since he had a hat trick like 2 months ago. He's done nothing since then, but he's still a viable option in some leagues. He takes a lot of shots. He still can put up points. Then we have Dmitry Voronkov. Don't love his ice time whatsoever, but he puts up good peripherals, and his production is pretty darn good considering his low ice time. So he's a good option. We got Jack Roslovich. I'm pretty sure he's on the first line right now. He got good ice time in his last game, I believe. So he could be a good option. We got Cole Sillinger. His ice time is decent. Again, these are kind of deeper league options as we get down on this list. And then Adam Boquist, defenseman. He's okay. In terms of some deeper league options that I didn't include, Kent Johnson, Alexander Texier, Severson, Corrali, Goodbranson, and Peak. Then we have some players that have 4 games and 3 off nights this week, so very good for maximizing your games as well. These are players from the Sabres, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Chicago Blackhawks. With the Sabres, I've kind of ranked them how I view them in fantasy. It depends on your league settings. Obviously, I have Tage Thompson first here when he really hasn't been first, but I do think that he should bounce back and have maybe a good week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The Sabres have a really good opponent goals against average, so keep that in mind. But as you guys can see here, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch, Jeff Skinner, Dylan Cousins, JJ Peterka, Casey Middlestat, Jordan Greenway, and Zach Benson. And then for the Jets, obviously Kyle Connor is not on here because he's not a guy you're going to be able to stream, but we have Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, Nikolai Ehlers, Ehlers is on the top line right now. I'm not sure if that's going to continue this week. Sometimes they move him down to the 4th line, which makes absolutely no sense. But we'll see what happens. We also got Velarde, Sean Monahan, both on the 1st line power play. We got Cole Perfetti, Nino Niederreiter, Neil Pionk, Adam Lowry, Brandon Dillon, Mason Appleton, and Naim Zykov. And then for the Blackhawks, not a lot of streamers on this team, but we have Seth Jones, Nick Foligno, Philip Kurashev, and Jason Dickinson. Lastly, in terms of the players that have 4 games and 2 off nights, there's so many teams that have this schedule that it was just hard to include them. But what I will say is that these are going to be players from the Rangers, the Ducks, the Predators, the Devils, the Oilers, and the Wild. If you want to figure out which players to stream, if you're on Yahoo, just sort by average fantasy points among these teams and find which players are best according to your league settings. If some of the players from the Sabres, Jets, and Blackhawks, and also the Blue Jackets are not available, then the players from these teams could be really good options as well for maximizing your games. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.